Hello, my name is Germana Ravanelli. I come to you from Nanaimo, BC. This video is going to be on a term that was new to me for a long time. I'd never heard it. And then when I heard it, I was like, oh my gosh, that describes a lot of people that I've had the privilege of knowing as well as myself. And the term is called being boundaryless, which is a term that is used basically as a result of not having been taught how to say no, how to say this doesn't work for me. And it also is tied to, how we were raised. Being boundaryless refers to a lack of clear or healthy personal boundaries. They can be emotional boundaries, they can be physical boundaries, they can be mental or energetic. So if you suffer in any of those areas of your life, this video could actually help you learn how to show up for yourself in a way that allows you to actually get your needs met and win. And that doesn't mean someone else loses. It means your life gets better. A boundaryless person may have difficulty saying no, defining their own needs, or distinguishing their emotions and responsibilities for those of others. So they often think if they take care of other people, everything will be okay because those people are okay. But they often I call it self-deleting. They don't really consider their own needs. And they often are exhausted, usually unhappy. They often end up with some sort of an illness because we are a universe. Your being is a universe. You're multifaceted. And you need to learn how to be a steward to your own needs in your own universe in order for your universe to work well. So what happens when we become boundaryless? These are some things that it can lead to, and many people will be able to identify with this. And I think it's chronic primarily for women, but I have seen many men just destroy their stability and their future by not having true, honest, considerate of self boundaries. So overgiving or people pleasing, that might be, sacrificing your own comfort. That might be sacrificing your own needs for sleep, for financial stability. That might also, mean taking care of somebody else or something at an expense that you don't realize the real cost of that. And one of the things that I say to people when I see them in that kind of a cycle, and I've lots of different clients, I've seen that. And I often say, where do you want to be in 5 years? Like, if you keep doing this, where do you think you will be in 5 years? Because everyone will always have a problem. And if you think that your ability to go and fix that will actually make it better, it won't. You're teaching that person to request or need you to rescue them. And so you're actually robbing them of their dignity. Because when you fix something for yourself, you feel better. And when you support someone, say, I'm here to help you, to support you, but you're doing it and I'm just your cheering squad, that's a whole different dance. And overgiving and people pleasing can cause all sorts of problems, addiction, depression, anxiety, shutdown, all sorts of terrible things. And this is another interesting thing. This happens to people that are empathic, absorbing others' emotions or problems. And I am guilty of that myself, where I was, and I still am, very, very intuitive. I can sit with someone and know what they're feeling. They might not know, but I can feel it. And learning to go, this isn't mine. And sometimes I'll just create a ball of light as my energetic field, so I'm not taking on their feelings, but I can feel them and, mind my own business, or say, is there something that you need to do that you're not doing, or is there something that you need to stop doing that would make your life better? Remember, most of these patterns are rooted in our childhood. Like, if you were raised by someone who wasn't emotionally available, the child then goes, I must fix this, and the child will then go to any lengths to make it better. And then when we grow up, we're still doing it. So we're not really living our life. We're doing it on this kind of a pseudo, if you're okay, I'm okay dance. And that is self-abandoning, feeling responsible for how others feel or act. Quite a while ago, I had a situation with my biological brother, who I love dearly. And he was very angry, and he was using that to try to push me and manipulate me and to push me into a corner. And I said, you're allowed to be angry. And I'm not responsible for your anger. And he just was like, he didn't know what to do with it. Because most of the time, if you get angry at someone, then they have a response and then you have this dance. It's a power struggle. And I just said, I'm not responsible for how you feel and you're allowed to have your feelings. That's a huge, huge win. If we think we need to fix it for somebody else, we are in deep, deep trouble. You actually honor somebody and love somebody by saying, I can see that you're upset. And you let them process it instead of thinking that you're some, magical person that's going to come and fix it, because they'll just come up with something else to be upset about. And we have to let people be responsible to regulate their own feelings, not think that, you're responsible or I'm responsible if someone's upset. They get to be upset. Good for you. Have your feelings. You can work it out however you need to work it out. And that's not being mean. When someone's angry, believe it or not, that means that there's something wrong for them that they need to fix. And if we run in and try to fix it, guess what happens? We rob them of an opportunity to develop emotionally, to have more dignity, and to understand how to take care of themselves. Anger is actually our friend. And I had to be taught that, believe it or not. So one of my therapists, when I was really young, she said, when you get angry, do something, because I would shut down and turn it on myself, and I would then clean a room and I would get something positive out of it. So I wouldn't run away from it. I wouldn't try to make somebody else carry my pain. I would go, okay, so I'm angry. And then I would have an actionable step, which does stop us from being depressed, which is good. Struggling with self-identity and self-worth. And I mean, this is all tied to not knowing who we are, not knowing what our needs are. And, thinking how others see us is a definition of who we are. And the interesting thing is people only see us through the lens. It's called the subconscious reality filter. So their history, they're seeing us through their filter. And then they might say, oh, I see you. You're a liar. You're a cheater. You're dishonest. And what they're actually doing is they're transferring something that they have not resolved within themselves or somebody else. And their subconscious sees a similarity in us and then tries to make us wear it. People do it all the time. And so when somebody decides that they think I'm wonderful or I'm not wonderful, I don't take any of it personally, because it has nothing to do with me. It's just their lens, how they see me. Self-identity, I think that's something that when you actually think about how beautiful a baby is, we all are that. That's within us. And then you see the toddler, and then the 4-year-old, and the 6 and the 8 and the 12 and the teenager, and the whatever decades you go up. We are part of all of that. And so I don't really think you can just put a label on somebody. We're multifaceted. And self-worth usually comes from knowing that we're worth taking care of and knowing that we're worth speaking up for. And that is a derivative of having boundaries. And like I said, most of the time when I was, in the younger part of my life, I was low-grade trauma all the time, and I didn't know it. I didn't know how to go, what are your needs? What do you need to feel safe? I was busy going, if you are comfortable, I am safe, which is a trauma response. So being boundaryless is usually a byproduct of not getting one's needs met as a child. So in psychological or spiritual contexts, being boundaryless often stems from unresolved trauma, enmeshment in early relationships, or beliefs that equate love with self-abandonment. And this is huge. If you ever check your attachment style and you're secure, that means you're really balanced. But if you're a fearful avoidant, anxious preoccupied, or dismissive avoidant, you have had those lines blown apart. And then your subconscious is doing all of these things that stops you from actually receiving love, because the subconscious equates, I must abandon me to take care of you so I can have your love. And that is not love. That is a trauma response. Healing this state involves learning to identify and assert one's own limits with clarity and compassion. And I'm just going to tie a little ribbon on it. One of the best ways to check is to ask yourself, am I considering my own needs here? If I was to consider my needs, what would I choose for me? And what's interesting is you can have boundaries in many, many different areas. It can be a physical boundary. It can be an intellectual boundary. I don't agree with you. Thank you for your opinion. A physical boundary can say, we're not having this conversation. I don't want to do this. An intellectual boundary can be very much the same. I don't agree with you, but thank you for sharing. And there's many, many different layers, and they're all kind of tied into saying, I matter, my needs matter. So I'm going to wrap this up really quickly, and then I'll put some other tools how to deal with being boundaryless in the next two videos. But I'm going to talk about my life story. It's called The Road to Transformation, Healing Generational Trauma. One of the rules that were installed into both myself and my brother, this is on Amazon if you're interested, was we weren't allowed to think, we weren't allowed to feel, and we weren't allowed to talk. So we weren't allowed to have an identity. So we had no boundaries. Our parents were severely damaged from being children of World War II in Europe. So their childhood was a horror show, and they couldn't handle our feelings, so they had to shut us down. And so in this book, like when I was told you need to write this book, and I'm like, I don't really want to talk about this. This is awful. I realized that it could also be a teaching tale for people that want to understand the process of healing from trauma, and also that we are resilient if we give ourselves permission to believe that we are worth loving. And that is the number one key. If I can find the decision to say, even when I'm sad, even when I'm scared, even when I'm exhausted, what is something that I can do for me that is loving? That's an example of a natural intervention with self. And that was one of the things that actually got me through a lot of the healing of this, because it was a granular process, and I still sometimes get triggered and need to go lay down and go, what does my body need? And often it just wants comfort. I just want to feel comfortable. And when people have had no boundaries, they don't even know that they're in pain. They usually wait until they end up in a hospital bed. Oh, I guess I'm not doing well. And that's an example of being boundaryless. So I want to thank you for watching this little video. I'm going to start to create, I have more support to actually create really professional ones. And so I just want to thank you for watching this. And if you like it, or you want to learn more about the art of self-love and self-care, body, mind, and spirit, then please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.